that, as you all know, we broadcast from Purdue University, and it is supported also by CIB, which is the International Council for Research and Innovation in Building and Construction. As you all know, our seminar series for this semester is focused on distinguished women researchers in the built environment. And to follow that series, today we have another distinguished colleague, Professor Monica Santos Salgado. She's a senior professor at the Architecture Graduate Program at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She's a scientist of our State of Carlos Chagas Foundation and researcher of the National Council for Scientific and Technological Development. She has been a visiting professor at Parsons School of Design in the United States, and also she has worked as a postdoc fellow at the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture in Toulouse, France. Her PhD is in production engineering, and her master's is in architecture, and with specialization in environmental management and work safety engineering. From 2016 to 2019, she was the coordinator of the Architecture Graduate Program at UFRJ and member of the Superior Council of UFRJ from 2015 to 2019. Since 1996, she has been the leader of GEPARQ, which is Research Group for Project Management in Architecture, orienting master's and doctoral research in technology, sustainability, and BIM. Please welcome Professor Monica Salgado. Monica, over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Mark. Thank you for this invitation and for this incredible opportunity to share some of the results that we have with the research that we develop at the university. I appreciate very much your invitation. I hope you can all enjoy what I have to share with you today. In fact, I have some key points of my presentation of today about design management in the digital era, challenges and opportunities. So the key points are the importance of BIM for the design management process, strategies to disseminate the possibilities offered by BIM and other possibilities of the digital era, research on BIM, HBIM, QMS, which is the quality management system, digital twins, and city information modeling, and particularly the importance of the integration of BIM and SIM for planning and managing smart, sustainable, resilient, and livable cities. I will try to give you an overview of all these subjects and the research that we are developing, and I hope you can enjoy this moment that we have here. But first, I'd like to take this opportunity to present my university. It's the first official higher university in Brazil, operating since 1792. The best federal university in Brazil, according to the KIES Top Universities 2023, we have in Brazil 63 federal universities and some state universities. But among all the 63, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro is the first one, according to this evaluation process, with 172 undergraduate courses, remote learning courses, 132 PhD and master's program, almost 54,000 undergraduate students, 53.5, and 15,000 postgraduate students, master's and PhD students. So it's a huge university, and the research that we develop here at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro has great impact all over the country. My faculty is the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism. I always get this QR code here. If you want any further information about my institution, about my faculty, and in other slides, you will see QR code every time, so you can get more information if you are interested. But I would like to tell you that it's the oldest architecture undergraduate course in Brazil, with 1,200 undergraduate students, 600 graduate students, masters and PhD students, and 120, in fact, professors. This is my program, Architecture Graduate Program, and it operates since 1987. The first PhD class was in 2003. In 2013, we initiated the professional master's degree in project and heritage. And in 2016, we received an important grant from CAPES. CAPES is the Coordination for the Improvement of Higher Education Personnel related to the Ministry of Education in Brazil. and we were granted to the title of Academic Excellence Program. I am very proud of this information because I was the coordinator at this time, and until now, PROAC still have this evaluation. So something that I would like to share with you. And just to present a little more about our program, we have two areas, research areas: quality, environment and landscape, and heritage theory and critique of architecture. And my research group, in fact, we have 17 research groups, and my research group initiated its activities in 1996, and now we have two leaders, me and Professor Marco Silvoso, and we intend to discuss design management, technology sustainability, and building information modeling. And also through this QR code, you have access to the website of our research group. But I'm here to discuss about design management in the digital era, some challenges and opportunities and alternatives and whatever. We have many things to discuss about this theme. And although I believe the majority of you know what is BIM, I always decided to initiate my presentations discussing about what is BIM, because I have some colleagues that until now thinks BIM is a software or that BIM is a tool. And it's much more than that. As you can see in this image, I like this image very much, this image below in this, the bottom part of the slide, because we have BIM in the center, surrounded by all software, by all tools that can help professionals to work properly to build information modeling. And that is why I like very much this definition, which is from Professor Finnick Hennigan. BIM can be defined as an ecosystem of applications and related processes that allow information to be shared and used for the entire life cycle of a building. That is BIM. BIM, it's not one tool. BIM, it's a bunch of tools. It's a methodology. It's not a software. It's not a simple building. It's not just 3D. And it's something, it won't take people out of the process. That is something that we must discuss because there are some people that think, no, people, how would be people inside the building process? Well, in fact, there is another definition that I like very much. BIM is a set of interaction among policies, processes, people, and technologies. And why? Because in fact, to work properly through build information modeling methodology, we must work with collaboration, coordination, and communication, and integration, of course. We must have specific skill. Sorry, is that any questions there? No, okay, can I proceed? Okay. So we must prepare our professionals to develop these skills so they can work properly to build information modeling. And that is why in different countries, we have some very important initiatives to disseminate BIM. I'm going to present to you some initiatives that we have in my country, Brazil, related to BIM dissemination. And so since, in fact, in 2012, we have the first conference discussing building information modeling. That is what I remember. But in fact, in 2013, we have the first master, and the first PhD, I believe, was in 2014, discussing building information modeling, studying how building information modeling will impact design management process. And in 2015, we have an important initiative from Santa Catarina, which is a state in the south part of the country, creating this laboratory that in fact is part of a GovSul network, together with the states of Paraná and Rio Grande do Sul, all three in the south part of the country, to maximize the potential gains with the use of building information modeling. And then in 2019, we have the federal decree establishing BIM Brazil's strategy to promote the modernization and digital transformation of construction, boosting the use of building information modeling. And in that same year, 2019, this is very important, we have this bid notice, number 3, from the Ministry of Economy to celebrate a term of collaboration for the execution of actions to promote gains in productivity and competitiveness in the civil construction sector. We will come back to this bid notice a little after, just a moment. I have to say something more. But I would like to share with you also about the new bidding and contracts law, which has been established in 2021 and says that in tenders for engineering and architectural works and services, whenever appropriate to the object of the tender, building information modeling shall be preferable adopted. And preferable in this sense, it is a federal law. So in this sense, preferable means mandatory. So it must be adopted. We cannot run far from BIM. BIM is here, and we have to think about how to disseminate and how to use it properly. Another information that I would like to share with you, I'm very proud with this information. It just occurred just in June 2023. The Board of Building Smart International announced that Brazil has formally approved, a chapter information, BIM chapter information. So you can get more data about this definition, this establishment, through this QR code here. So as you can see, we have many discussions about building information modeling, but of course, we have to think, how should professionals be prepared? What strategy is the best to disseminate BIM among professionals? It's a huge country with very difference among regions. We have the south part of the country with some characteristics very different from the north part of the country. So you have to think about how to disseminate BIM among professionals. And we think it's very important because it's not just a tool, it's not just a software, as I said in the beginning of my presentation here. It demands a cultural change. It demands the development of new skills in some professionals. It demands some kind of preparation so people could properly work through building information modeling methodology. And I like very much this citation from Professor Randy Dutch. The difference between a successful BIM implementation and a failed one has as much to do with the mindsets and attitudes. Remember that, mindsets and attitudes of those who use it as it does to technologies. So we have to review our design management process in order to align people's attitudes, mindsets, and work habits to excel in BIM environment. This is not an easy task. It's the opposite of an easy task, because we have to discuss about building information modeling, not only with our colleagues, but also with colleagues from other parts of the country, in order to understand which are the main challenges to be faced in order to properly disseminate BIM methodology. So we think that BIM should be introduced to architects and engineers and civil engineers during undergraduate courses, because it is a great opportunity to develop these skills. When I told you before about cooperation, collaboration, communication, integration, all these skills must be developed during undergraduate courses, so professionals could be prepared to be introduced in the market, knowing how to work with their colleagues, and particularly to work with colleagues through the possibilities offered by building information modeling. So that is why I am revisiting this slide when I told you before about the bid notice number 3. Why? Because this bid notice established 9 goals to be achieved in order to, in fact, celebrate this term of collaboration, as I told you before. And 5 of these 9 goals are related to building information modeling. And I would like to call your attention particularly to goal number 7, stimulate the development and application of new technologies related to BIM through the creation of a BIM cell in a public university. The actions of the BIM cell must be focused on innovation through the integration of BIM with the new 4.0 technologies. So this is the recognition. We think that this is the recognition from the federal government that building information modeling should be presented to professionals since undergraduate courses. So this is the challenge that we have to face now. And just so you know, what is BIM cell? This definition of what is a BIM cell. BIM cell are organized groups of professors and students from an educational institution involved in proposing and developing a BIM implementation plan in one or more courses with the aim of carrying out academic digital transformation actions. So this bid notice brought to us this idea, the idea of having BIM cells in the different universities, not only federal universities, but also state universities and private sector universities. We have different types of universities in Brazil. And of course, in different courses, not only the architecture undergraduate course, but also civil engineering, the undergraduate course. And that is why in my university, currently, I'm coordinating this project entitled Implementing and Structuring a BIM Cell at the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. This research is being developed since the last year. We initiated, in fact, in 2021, at the end of 2021, we have these 4 phases to the implementation of this beam cell, particularly in the architecture undergraduate course. But I must say, I have colleagues of mine, friends of mine, in this polytechnic school, in the engineering school, which these colleagues are also developing their beam cells, not only through a research project, but disseminating through workshops and discussing with the students. So we have this initiative in different parts of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. But my project, this research project, we have decided to organize in 4 phases. Phase 1, planning of actions, it's almost finished, the phase 1. Phase 2, beam cell laboratory installation. Phase 3, the detail of activities. And phase 4, the follow-up, identifying through professors, to the opinion of the professor, my colleagues, and also students, if they have identified some change in the perception about beam possibilities. And so one of the one of the actions was the evaluation of the architecture undergraduate curriculum. And this QR code here is because I had the opportunity to present this paper last year in the CIB conference. So this paper is in English. If you want more information about the strategy adopted to analyze the architecture undergraduate curriculum, you can get this paper, this full paper, through this QR code here. But the decision to adopt beam domain model uses is because each beam domain model uses represents a set of project requirements, activities, and deliverables, grouped under a single heading. So it was very easy to see the correlation among beam possibilities and the architecture undergraduate course contents categories. We have in this part here, geometry, history and theory of architecture, construction and technology, environmental comfort, planning and designing. These are the architecture undergraduate course contents categories for all architecture courses in Brazil. And in the other parts, we have 6 of the 7 beam domain model uses: capturing and representing, constructing and fabricating, simulating and quantifying, planning and design, operating and maintaining, monitoring and controlling. And it was very easy to analyze our curriculum through this lens here. So this is part of the research that we are developing. And there are, of course, other actions, ongoing actions. For example, we are promoting workshops with professors, with BIM experts, so they can discuss with these BIM experts about the possibilities to incorporate BIM in their classes. BIM cell laboratory installation with some new computers and some new support so we can work properly with BIM tools. The creation of a new class entitled BIM in Architecture Education, which had been offered to master's and PhD students of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And in fact, it's very interesting because although the title of the class is BIM in Architecture Educations, we are receiving students from the civil engineering course, graduate course. So this discipline, this class, called the attention of different students from different parts of the university. And the results were so promising that we are now organizing a book with some of the suggestions, some of the solutions presented by the PhD and the master students that are participating in this discipline, this class. We intend to publish this book at the end of this year. I hope you can understand my English. I try to speak, I speak very fast in Portuguese and English, in every language, but I hope you can understand. If you have any problem, please raise your hand and I will speak slowly. Well, but besides BIM cells, what else? Of course, we know that BIM is not the only possibilities offered by the digital era. So I'd like to share with you, it's a very exciting news that I received yesterday. I received a message from the National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, Brazilian National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, which is related to the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, the Brazilian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, and they approved the financial support for this research that will start next year, 2024, digital methodologies and sustainable development, applications in the production of smart and sustainable buildings and cities. And I have a dream team working with me for the development of this research project. We have 3 professors, colleagues of mine from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and 1 professor from the Federal University of Juiz de Fora. Juiz de Fora is a city very near from Rio de Janeiro, but it's from another state, the state of Minas Gerais. So we are very excited with this opportunity to go discussing not only BIM, but also SIM, also materials passport, life cycle analysis, virtual reality, rapid prototyping, and many other possibilities offered by this digital era. But I'd like to share today some results, because this research will initiate yet. So I do not, of course, we do not have any results yet. But I'd like to share with you some results of the master's and doctoral research approved by the examination board at the architecture graduate program. So I had the opportunity to be the advisor of these 2 masters recently presented masters in project and heritage. The first I'd like to share had been developed by Cristiane Canuto, and it's entitled Model and Intervention Project Palácio Gustavo Capanema, a BIM model and intervention project at Palácio Gustavo Capanema, developed under my supervision by Cristiane Canuto, which is an architect, and she decided to reconstruct digitally the Palácio Gustavo Capanema, which is an important Brazilian building, a very important representative of modern architecture, Brazilian modern architecture. And it is located in Rio de Janeiro city. And she decided to reconstruct it digitally and to propose an intervention in the last floor, in the last floor of this building, because it has a beautiful view of the Guanabara Bay. If you hasn't visited my city, please, I will be very happy if you come here to visit my city. And so this model had been prepared using ArchiCAD, and through this QR code, you can download this model. It is online through the website of BIMX of Graphisoft, so you can download this model. In fact, Cristiane prepared 2 models of this building. The first one is the model as it has been project, the original model. And the second one is from 1945, is what has been built, because it has some changes from the original model. And one of the architects that is part of the team, the dream team, it's truly a dream team, that the author of this Palácio Gustavo Capanema building is Oscar Niemeyer. So this building, it's very important for us, and I invite you all to get this model, this BIM model, through this QR code here. And also I had the opportunity to be the supervisor of Larissa Moura, which developed a research entitled Virtual Reconstruction in the Safeguard of Historic Heritage, the Palacete Felé case, which is a very old building in Juiz de Fora, the city that I mentioned before. It was in very bad conditions, in fact, when Larissa started her research. And in fact, here, in the bottom part here, the reddish part of this image here represents details of which Larissa was able to obtain architectural evidence. And the bluish part represents detail that she only had information through photographs, paintings, and other registration, because the building, unfortunately, is in ruins. But what is important is that both students explored the possibilities of what we call HBIM, heritage BIM, historic BIM. So these 2 research bring us some possibilities, for example, for using BIM during undergraduate courses. Okay, another research I had the opportunity to be the advisor has been developed by Bianca Leal, using the BIM platform in teaching architecture challenges and propositions. I can say that this was, in fact, the beginning of BIM Cell. The development of this research and the approval of this research was the beginning of the discussion of the BIM Cell in my institution. And I also had the opportunity to be the advisor of the master dissertation developed by Eduardo Ribeiro, which explored the potential possibilities of the adoption of BIM platform in the approval process of building project, or in verifying the rules established by building regulations to support architects, to facilitate the life of architects, because there are many rules, many regulations that must be considered when we are, I believe, not only in my country, but all over the world. So building information modeling can also help help professionals in this task, in this challenge. And I'd like to share another PhD. This PhD, the other were a master's dissertation, but this is a PhD that I had the opportunity to be the supervisor together with Professor Eduardo Toledo, which is a professor from the State University of São Paulo. And Cristiane developed a test in BIM macro adoption. BIM macro adoption instrument for automating maturity assessment on the notable publications component. This test is aimed to design a system that allows the automation of BIM macro maturity assessment, which has been developed by Bilal Sukar and Mohamed Kassan, two experts in BIM. Bilal Sukar is related to Melbourne University, and Mohamed Kassan is professor at Newcastle University. Here we have the model B, the macro maturity model developed by Sukar and Kassan. And in fact, Cristiane at first intended to prepare instruments for all 8 components of this macro maturity model. But of course, it wasn't possible because it's very complicated. It's not easy. It's a big challenge. So she decided to work fortunately only in one component, which is this one, noteworthy publications. And so she developed this instrument to analyze the BIM maturity in the country, considering the publications. So I'm very proud to be the advisor of this, to have been the supervisor of this research, because after this PhD, it has been approved. And then after that, Cristiane had been invited to join the group, the macro adoption group, which is developing a global study, an international global study about the macro adoption system. And you can have more information about this initiative also through this QR code here. So it's a PhD research developed in the architecture graduate program, and now it's all over the world. And I'm very happy to be part of this process. And another doctorate in architecture that I'd like to share, it had been developed by Fabiana Dias, entitled Management of the Project Process in the Rehabilitation of Buildings, aiming to improve environmental quality. Does not have been the title, but this project of the rehabilitation project that had been analyzed by Fabiana was in BIM. And we had also the opportunity to publish this paper in English. So if you want any more information about this research, you can scan this QR code here and you have access to the paper published in English. The analysis had been conducted adopting the fault tree analysis method, FTA analysis method. And in fact, unfortunately, BIM had not been adopted since the beginning of this design management process, and they faced many problems because of that. You can have more information through this QR code. Well, now I'd like to share some of the research the ongoing research that we are conducting now in the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. So I am advising 3 master's dissertations and 3 PhD theses, doctorate research. Among the master dissertation, I'd like to highlight Raissa Bezerra, which is discussing quality management for BIM implementation. Raissa is an architect from an architecture department at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. So she is very concerned with the exigencies of the new bidding law. So she understands that through the quality management system requirements, she can try to help a new organization form inside of her department, so the architecture team, so the design team can work properly through the challenges of building information methodology, to build information modeling methodology. Camila is discussing, it's very interesting, the research of Camila is developing, because she intends to analyze the role of student body in the dissemination of BIM. Because we have a BIM cell, as I presented to you before, with professors discussing about BIM, but we have some informal initiatives, I can say like that came from students interested in building information modeling. And these students are discussing BIM with or without professors. but they are discussing and they are disseminating among their colleagues. And these are students from the undergraduate course, not graduate course, but from the undergraduate course. And Camila, it's analyzing these initiatives. Pamela has just initiated her master's in this year, 2023, and she intends to analyze the impact of digital technologies in architecture decisions, if it had changed in some aspect or not. So just initiating her research. And among the PhD research that I had the opportunity to be the advisor, I'd like to highlight this first one, the adoption of digital technologies in facilities management and preservation of built-in heritage. As you can see, again, we have here Cristiane Lopes Canuto, the same Cristiane that developed the master research under my supervision, and now she is under my supervision together with Professor Ricardo Codinhoto, which is a professor from the University of Bath in United Kingdom. And she intends to analyze how can we work with digital twins, facilities management, and HBIM, heritage BIM, to prevent problems, particularly in some buildings, some modern architecture in Brazilian buildings, some architecture which are representatives of the Brazilian modern architecture, some buildings which represents very much the Brazilian modern architecture. This is the research that is being developed by Cristiane, and also Eduardo Ribeiro, the same Eduardo that I had the opportunity to be the advisor in the master's research. Now he's developing a research related to the information management and security in the adoption of BIM by architecture offices. And this research is being, I am the supervisor together with Professor Sérgio Schier from Federal University of Paraná. Another doctorate on ongoing research that I have the opportunity to be the advisor is being developed by Pedro Seixas. As you can see, we do not have BIM in the title of this research, because in fact, the interest in Pedro is to provide provide informations that can be modeled so we can get best decision. We can go to best decisions in what relates to urban planning. So the title is Architecture in the Adoption of ESG, Environment, Sustainability, and Governance Practices, an Artifact Proposal for Social Interest Housing Location. And this research analyzed the total building costs in order to decide which is the best location for social interest housing. We had the opportunity to publish the first part of the research in an international paper, also in English, that you can get access to this QR code. And now Pedro is it's going to the end of this research. I believe he's going to present the final findings in next February. I hope so, and he hopes so too. But what else? After BIM, what are the alternatives for design management? I think I've just talk a little about that. But of course, we must think about BIM and we must think about CIM, which is the City Information Modeling, because the production of smart, sustainable, and livable buildings and cities depends on the quality of the design process. When we advocate in favor of BIM, and particularly when we think about the skills, the habits that must be developed to properly work through building information modeling, in fact, we are also advocating in favor of city information modeling because the skills are similar. We must work collaboratively. We must work with the coordination of all participants. We must know how to communicate through this digital environment that we are now working, which is building information modeling and city information modeling. So, city information modeling seeks to facilitate integration among design decision and urban planning, enabling the modeling of cities. And information from the digital mapping can help government to improve urban planning through electricity and grid analysis, enhancing water and sewage networks, among other possibilities. This video is part of the results obtained by an MIT group. You can get this video through this QR code here. MIT decided, together with the mayor of the city, Rio de Janeiro city, decided to map Rocinha. Rocinha is one of the biggest slums that we have in Brazil, the biggest favelas that we have in Brazil. And it's very difficult to plan plan any possibilities, the urban services that we want to achieve the necessities of the citizens in this complex urban settlement, it's very difficult. So they decide to get through point clouds all information about the buildings, particularly in the main street of this favela, in order to think how to operate, how to get best this urban planning decisions to improve the life of the citizens in this important settlement. So SIM, city information modeling, can allow smart cities, of course, to operate considering the citizens' needs, enhancing citizens' livability. There are 5 important vectors, how can I say, the main vectors of smart cities, which are this digital transformation, urban environment, mobility, governance and finance, inclusive and sharing cities. And each of these vectors works with specific questions to be fulfilled, to be answered, to some measures that must be adopted in urban planning. So, for example, when we think about mobility, how can we fulfill the promise of reducing travel time and saving money with environmentally friendly options? Inclusive and sharing cities, how can cities cope with the future of the work revolution while ensuring that no one is left behind? These are some of the discussions that we have during the Smart Cities Conference all over the world. And we think it must be answered properly. If we think, particularly when we think that smart city is not only a digital city, an intelligent city, a truly smart city must be sustainable, must be resilient, must think about citizens. And in fact, when we look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals through the lens of the vectors of the smart city, we can see that all 17 goals can benefit from these vectors. As you can see here, all 17 goals can benefit from the vectors of smart city. So we think that it's not only a smart city must be sustainable, as well as a sustainable cities must be smart. And when we think about digital technologies, in fact, we experienced this during the COVID-19 outbreak, the importance of digital transformation so we can go on with our lives, although we were facing a very difficult period of our lives. And that is why I'm going to talk about BIM, SIM, and COVID-19, because when the COVID initiated, I was initiating my period as visiting scholar at Parsons School of Design. I wasn't in Brazil, I was in United States, I was in New York City, and I had to stop my research and I couldn't get back home. I did not get any flight to get back home. And so I decided to analyze how a smart city, because New York is recognized as one of the smartest cities in the world. And so I decided to analyze how a smart city, as New York City, reacts facing pandemics, facing an outbreak such as a pandemic. And so they decided one of the first actions of the local government was to establish a channel with the citizens to inform citizens what was going on in the city. And so I decided to map these messages to analyze what's happening. And I decided to group each message in specific category. These 8 categories emerging from the nature of the messages in each SMS messages sent by the local government. This paper had also been published in English in the last CIB conference. I mapped 178 messages because on June 22, I finally could get back to Brazil. And then this data reveals to us which were the main concerns at that point. It was the first wave of COVID. We have many different waves after that, but the first wave, which were the main concerns of the local government. So medical and COVID information about food distribution, small business support information, support for victims of domestic violence initiating the 4th week, control school and remote learning information, control of price gougings, another something that happened just in the first weeks, motivational messages, and general information. So why am I talking about this with you? Because this data, not only the data that I've collected, but all data that had been collected during COVID outbreak, this data could guide future actions. We can map this data, we can model this data through all the possibilities offered by digital technologies in order to prepare for different scenarios that we can face in the future. And in order to be more prepared to outbreaks, I hope we do not have any pandemics anymore, but we do not know the future. So I believe we must learn from the past to plan the future. We must learn what happened, analyze what has happened with us, what have happened with us, so we can prepare for years to come. So my final comments for you, so we can discuss a little. I believe digital technologies reveals enormous potential to support actions in exceptional cases, as occurred during 2020 pandemic. I believe this is not something that's not only my idea, but I believe many colleagues and many of you, of course, agree with that. The accelerated digital transformation seen in the last few years points toward a future where emerging technologies will have a strong impact on government operations. I believe it is also very clear to us that we depend on digital technology so we can properly from now on. For the success of BIM implementation in the undergraduate course, one of the alternatives, of course, is the BIM cells with professors and students working collaboratively. I believe we are very happy to have our BIM cell in my university, and I say to you, it's very nice to have people discussing BIM with students, together with students, professors, and master's and PhD students, and also the integrated visions of BIM and SIM, City Information Modeling, can improve the design management process and should be part of architecture and engineering professional training. Well, I hope I could give you a brief of what we are discussing here in Brazil, and I would be very glad to answer your questions. And thank you again, Professor Mark, for this incredible opportunity. Thank you very much.
No, thank you indeed, Monica. This was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure as a leader in the area of BIM, I'm sure a lot of our audience have questions. So let me open this conversation for Q&A. We have time, and so please open your mic and go ahead and ask question, please. Yes, Brian, I see you opening your. Go ahead, please, Professor Brian Hubbard.
Yeah, so Professor Salgado, first of all, very nice presentation. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. One of the things that we're seeing here in the United States is really an explosion of what we call design build project delivery, where it's gotten and other integrated project delivery, where we have a lot of collaboration between the architect, the engineer, the constructor, the specialty subcontractors. They're all participating in the BIM model and developing their own BIM models and working together. I'm curious, first of all, if you see that happening in Brazil as well. And my kind of follow-up question to that is, we have some issues when we all start collaborating of who owns the model, if something happens, who's liable for the situations. It's really kind of a control of the BIM model overall. So in this whole design phase management, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on all these collaborators and how you kind of, make sure bad things don't happen.
I do not know how to make bad things happen. I can tell you this. We have in Brazil here what we call the BIM Forum Brazil, which is a group of researchers and professionals discussing and trying to disseminate good practices through building information modeling. And we have some, but I cannot say to you, as I mentioned before, it's a huge country with very different aspects. The south part of the country have some level of development, some BIM maturity level, I can say like that. And another part of the country had another maturity level. So we do not have an equal scenario all over the country. We have differences in the south part and in the north part of the country. And of course, this concern that you said about which, to whom it is, who is the owner of the BIM model. Mm-hmm. This is something very interesting because in fact, architects tend to think that they are the owner if they had the first idea. But when we properly discuss and prepare properly architects to work collaboratively, I have some colleagues of mine that they say, no, I'm not the owner of the project because it's a project of a group of professionals. So it's not my project anymore. It's a group of me with someone, another. So people are initiating this process of thinking about the BIM model, of thinking about the building itself as something that it's part of a working process of a design team and not only one. I do not know if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that is very helpful. Yeah, no, that answered my question. And again, thank you again.
And thank you so much for the question.
Thanks, Brian. Any other questions? Well, I had actually a follow-up to what Professor Hubbard was asking about, and you know, in similar veins, that there are a lot of constraints to BIM or problems with BIM, you know, that we were discussing. That follows with, you know, weak leadership from the organization, or high cost of implementation, or lack of collaboration between the different parties, and so on. So I wanted to know, you know, Brian already touched upon some of the legal issues that might come up also, but what are your thoughts on how you can improve that culture of BIM usage throughout the project participants and different teams involved?
Well, I believe in my opinion, one of the main initiatives is to prepare our professionals since undergraduate courses. So professionals can go to the market thinking in BIM, working with BIM. But for the current professionals, it's very hard because, as I said in the beginning, some colleagues still think that BIM is a tool or is a software. And it's not only their fault. In fact, we have some software developers, we can say like that like to say that my software is BIM. And no, in fact, we have many different softwares with many different possibilities. And these softwares must be, how can I say, BIM must be adopted by each professional, depending on each role in the design team. So we have management softwares, we have modeling softwares, we have software for simulation, we have software for planning all the build construction process, for example. And each professional must understand the role of each professional in this group, so they can properly choose the tool, choose which software to use, and then discuss with their colleagues how to use it in a more productivity way. I believe this is the word, the correct word. But here in Brazil, I believe this law, as I told you before, the bidding law, it's very important because it is, how can I say, it is a priority now for the public organisms to think about BIM adoption. So this federal law, I believe it will be a very important the work goes away on my mind. A very important drive to help professionals to think about BIM. And of course, when we have a federal law, normally the private sector are also interested in what this federal law says. So I think it's something, this regulation will help us to boost the dissemination of BIM among professionals, not only in the private sector, but also not only in the public sector, but particularly in the private sector.
I think that's really a strong step taken by Brazil.
Yes, sorry. And also the new chapter information that I mentioned about the BIM initiative. This is another important aspect that I believe must help us in this difficult moment. It's very difficult.
So I see several questions coming up. I think Dave has his hand up, and I think Professor Widener is next. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. Based on being in Professor Widener's class, I'll ask this question. In the use of BIM that you're seeing, and you referred to, public and private sector, are there different industries that are making better value? Like here in the U.S., I would say, healthcare and hospitals, but then also like private industry and manufacturing and, oil and gas, and in those different sectors, use of BIM from a value returned in construction, and then operation and maintenance over the future. Could you speak to any of those topics, please?
Yes, we see here in Brazil that, in fact, building information modeling is being adopted, particularly in the civil construction sector. So we have some hospitals. We had recently, not so recently, but we have the Olympics here. And for example, we have some buildings that had been developed adopting building information modeling together with some sustainable requirements. So we have some different enterprises that are always, that are in this time trying to adopt BIM in complex buildings. And we have some initiatives in the private sector, particularly in the private sector. But as I said before, not all over the country. These initiatives are located particularly in the south part of the country. So we have the private sector adopting BIM for hospitals, constructions, schools, faculties, and this example that I gave you before about the stadium of the Olympics. I point like that because I live nearby the Olympics park. And so we have these initiatives from the private sector, but not from the public sector. In the public sector, in fact, we have some initiatives in the south part, because I mentioned about Santa Catarina, Paraná, and Rio Grande do Sul. We have some initiatives in the south part of the country. And in the north part of the country, also in the public sector, we have Salvador, which is a city, the capital of Bahia. We were there in April, me and Professor Mark. And Salvador is also trying to adopt BIM in the approval process in order to evaluate if the buildings are according to the building regulations. So how can I say, it's not an initiative that I can say to you, it's together. It's a little fragment initiative. Some initiatives here are not there. And I believe this bidding law that I mentioned, it's very important because it will try to bring all these initiatives together, and they will be strong because it will strengthen these initiatives in order to properly disseminate, not only for hospitals and schools, but for all kinds of buildings. Of course, we know, and I always said that to my students, that we do not have to abandon AutoCAD, or I did not have abandoned my pencil and my pen. We have to choose the tools depending on each project, in fact. But the initiative of BIM dissemination must be, how can I say, improved. And I believe what we have here, particularly with the BIM Brazil Forum, we will make these initiatives together, and together we will be strong, of course. Sorry for my English. Sometimes I have complex ideas and I cannot, but I hope you can understand, Dave. Thank you.
No, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Oh.
Thank you, Dave. Professor Widener, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. I particularly appreciated the fact that you've identified BIM as being able to be used for operations and maintenance. But as a person who teaches students about operations and maintenance of facilities, I continue to be frustrated that it doesn't seem to be adopted very well by most private users, excluding the users you've already identified, hospitals and public sector. What educational initiatives would you recommend for private owners so that they understand the value of BIM, not just during the design phase and construction phases, but for operations and maintaining their facilities?
I believe the benefits offered by, for example, all the possibilities offered by digital twins, the building managers will like it very much, because we can think about building the facility management in a building, not only staying in the building, but getting this information through this connection among the digital twins and facility management, looking to the building itself, looking to the model of this building. And I believe these professionals, particularly building managers, they can benefit from building information modeling, not building information modeling per se, but related to digital twins. In fact, we have sensors in different buildings, so we can monitor the building performance. But through this, how can I say, this correlation, it would be best. Of course, it would be easier because information will reach the building manager faster than it reaches now. I think like that. And that is why I have this research that we are, the ongoing research from Christiane, and we are trying to prove that it is viable, it is possible, it is good to have this connection among all the sensors, all the information that we have from the building, connected through a building model and with all information of a facility management. Sorry.
Thank you, Professor Weidner. Any other questions? You can either raise your hand so you pop up in the front of my screen, or if you can just directly open your mic and ask a question. So while people are thinking, let me go ahead and ask my follow-up question to what Ted was asking about. And it was really fascinating to hear about the city information modeling as a follow-up to BIM. I think that would be very exciting. But having said that, the question that was in my mind was that I can see its application for a brand new city project, which are obviously going to be very rare. But I was wondering, how do you foresee capturing digital footprints or digital model for the entire city that already exists, and the application of SIM for that purpose?
Okay, well, for example, the example that I showed wasn't not mine, because in fact we are just initiating this second research about city information modeling. But what they tried to do was to map the settlement, which is a very complex settlement with very narrow streets. And for example, ambulances cannot reach citizens through this settlement in the way. I don't know if someone's trying to get to us.
No, I think the mic is open. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
The ambulances and any other urban services cannot get to citizens because they are very narrow streets. And so when you use building information modeling, for example, through point cloud, we can model this existing situation and think about what should I do so I can provide these citizens with the best urban services that we have. And that is why I think even the modeling of existing cities, it's very important because, for example, sometimes we think about, well, let's build a new hospital, for example, which is the best location for this hospital. So we can analyze through a city model to look, where do I have people? Where do I have the hospitals now? Where people do not have fast access to a new hospital or a new school or another building. Whatever, we can develop this research using an urban plan, using city information modeling, and also trying different scenarios. Okay, if the hospital is here, what it could implies in terms of traffic jam, in terms of public access to this hospital. Do I have public access to this hospital in this location? No, I do not have. Okay, forget that location. Let's think about another location. So we can try different alternatives using city information modeling. The same as the alternatives that we can analyze using building information modeling for the building. Now we can use the city, the possibilities of changing our cities, changing the urban design of our city, of thinking about our cities for the future.
Yeah, and I can see how that fits into your new project. Congratulations, by the way, about smart and sustainable buildings and cities. So I think that would be quite interesting. But before I ask for the question on that, let me again see. Piyush, did you have a question? Anybody else? I have multiple screens here because we have all these participants. Okay. So I cannot see everybody, but if you do have a question, please either raise.
And in fact, Mark, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, that's why I'm still with this slide here. Send me an email. I will be glad to answer your questions, because sometimes people do not want to formulate questions. No, it's being videotaped. No. And so can give me an email and send me an email after, and I'll be glad to answer. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Majed, you have a question. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question regarding adding the BIM into the curriculum of undergrad school. So I was wondering, like, are you planning to add it as a core class or as an elective class? Also, I have another question. When you teach BIM, I mean, it's a big topic. Are you going to break it down into like multiple courses or just compact it into one course?
I would like to thank you very much for this question, because I believe my presentation did not clarify which strategy we think is the best. In fact, we do not think that we must teach BIM, but that we must teach with BIM, because it will not be possible to change all the architecture or engineering undergraduate course to include BIM and to include how to teach. We have different softwares, we have different tools, we have different situations, but if professors adopt building information modeling to teach, for example, I have a colleague of mine which are studying how to teach environmental comfort using softwares that work through building information modeling. So he can present and teach environmental comfort, thermal and acoustic comfort through building information modeling. I have another colleague which are teaching budgeting, also using building information modeling. I have a colleague from the Federal University of Roraima, which is in the north part of the country. He is professor of the planning discipline, planning and designing discipline, and particularly the discipline, the class related to the planning of hospitals. Someone thought we were discussing about hospitals before, and he is also asking students to think about alternatives working through building information modeling. So I believe each of us in our classes, we can use BIM as a didactic strategy. And so we do not have to teach BIM, but to teach with BIM. And of course, when we are teaching with BIM, we are teaching BIM, because students will think about, oh, this is a possibility that I did not know. Oh, professor, how did you do that? And so I will not have classes to teach, for example, one of another software. In fact, this is another problem, because in Brazil, some softwares are very expensive. And so students cannot support the payment of these softwares after graduation. And so we have a group, in our research group, we have some undergraduate students which are exploring the free BIM software, such as Blender BIM, SIP architecture, and among others. And so I believe that we do not have to teach BIM, or at least not teach BIM in different classes. We can have a workshop of two to explain what is BIM, but I think we must incorporate BIM in our didactic practices. So each professor can analyze which is the best tool, which is the best strategy to teach the specific content of my discipline. Thank you for this opportunity, because I think I did not highlight this aspect.
Thank you. Majid, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so I have a concern. Like, I totally agree with your approach when you just implement it in everything, like while teaching like structure course, for example. But during my time when I was undergrad student, I remember like the professor having like just the board and the book. So we didn't have to worry about like computers or softwares. But if you do your way that we use softwares, that would be too expensive for the students, and it would be difficult. Wouldn't you agree?
That's for sure. That's why we must use what is needed to our students to know, to learn this specific subject. Because in fact, we know that professors tend to think that my class is the most important. It's something that all of us think about. That's nature, that's normal, because it's our class. But in fact, we know that after graduation, each student will have a different path, a different career path. So each student, if the students know something about BIM in this specific aspect, and they decided to choose this path, he will go back to you, Majid, and ask about the software. That is what I think. That is why it's so important to present the software during undergraduate course. And then when the students go to this particular path, he will or not look for us to get more information about the alternatives that we adopted to teach and to work properly with the softwares of the family, building information modeling.
Yeah, thank you. So I had a follow-up question on that actually. Good questions, Majid. Uh, you mentioned about BIM cells, so I think that's a great idea in itself. Were you thinking about collaboration between the various cells at different universities?
We are trying to get this collaboration among different courses. In fact, this is one of the goals that I have in mind, to have architecture students working collaboratively with civil engineering students. This is just the beginning. It's very difficult to get this relation even among courses, because that's why I presented my university. It's a huge university, and we are very far one from another. I'm in one building, my colleagues is in another building, and in fact, even this geographical distance, it's not very good for the collaboration that we need. That's for sure, even though we have all digital technologies that can bring us together. So we are trying to initiate this process with these two courses, the architecture and urbanism undergraduate course, with civil engineering undergraduate course. And then if you could get that on track, I believe we can go to other projects, like, for example, to integrate different universities.
Well, we still have some time for questions. If you have a question, please either raise your hand so I can see it, or else just open your mic and ask a question, please.
Mark, it's interesting because we have some colleagues from the structural department. They said to me, "Oh, I do not use BIM." Though, of course, you use BIM, and so, but they think that no, but BIM is that and that software, and I do not now use that. No, it's not that. So this is the first challenge, the first obstacle that we must surpass, so we can think about this integration. People can see. We have another group. I have a discussion with a colleague of mine. He said to me, "No, I do not use BIM, I use digital graphic." No, but this is part of building information modeling. And so we have to fight for these, how can I say, predefined ideas, wrong ideas, so we can properly work collaboratively. It's not an easy task, but we will get somewhere.
No, you're a great champion for that cause, Monica.
Thank you.
And we thank you for that, of course. Well, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll ask my last question that I always do. So not seeing anybody raising hands. Well, let me see. So I was going to ask you this question. It's kind of off the field a bit, but with ChatGPT and other technologies coming up with varying capabilities and such, how do you see that impacting architectural studies, and do you see that impacting creativity within the architecture process?
This is the research that Pamela is just starting. My PhD, my master's, student tries to understand this impact. In fact, I think there is an impact, of course, but I cannot say to you that, how can I say? I have a discussion with a colleague of mine. Is architecture being improved through building information modeling? And we have yes and no answers. We have yes when we have colleagues, we have architects and colleagues which are exploring BIM possibilities to search for better solutions, for different solutions, to try different solutions for one building. And no, because we have some colleagues that are just repeating solutions that they have tested before and using the same solutions for other other buildings, other settlements. So yes and no. We have the two situations here. It depends on the professional. In fact, it is always in the hands of the professionals. In fact, independently, if it is BIM, if it is the pencil, the pen, AutoCAD, it depends on the professionals. If professionals want to do the best that they can, I believe we will have great solutions, great architecture solutions, but it depends on the professionals, in my opinion.
Okay, no, thank you very much. But peeling that onion a little bit further, ChatGPT, which from people who have played with it, would know that you give a certain instruction and it comes up with some rendition of sorts, right? So that seems to be, and I've heard from many people that they find it threatening. to their profession, whether that be in visual graphics or whether that be in architecture. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
We have AI, artificial intelligence, being used by professionals sometimes to get solutions for some architecture process. It exists before, even before ChatGPT. We have these solutions. We have some websites. They ask, tell me, what do you want? Well, I want 4 floors, 4 apartments by floor, and then you have all the solutions immediately gave to you. But for me, this is not architecture. This is a solution. Okay, built environment solution, perfect. But when we think about architecture, when we think about people, when we think about people's needs, I believe in creativity and innovation. I believe this is something that, not just for now, I believe we are not being, how can I say, this is not something that we can be worried about now. But I believe we must learn how to work with artificial intelligence. We must not think about artificial intelligence as an opponent, as someone that we must fight against, but we must think, how can I use artificial intelligence to be a better architect, to be a better civil engineer? That's what I think. I do not know if I'm right or wrong, because we have to see the years to come, but I believe we must learn about. We cannot close our eyes to what is happening, but we have to think how to use this properly.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and indeed, you're right. It's
Okay.
time will show how it unfolds. But I want to thank you very much for this very exciting presentation. From the extent of questions, you could see that was very well received, and so thank you again for taking time. And thanks to all our audience for staying together till the very end. So I appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday when we have another distinguished colleague sharing their research. So thank you all. Please open your mics and give Professor Salgado a great round of applause.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate very much. And thank you all of you for being together until now. Thank you so much, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.